Good evening and welcome to California Today. I'm David Lam. Here's a preview of some of today's stories. 13 different groups gathered together in San Francisco to protest the Beijing Olympics. They marched to the Chinese consulate, citing the regime's terrible human rights record. And a mother is raising awareness about what fentanyl addiction has done to her son as he lives on the streets of San Francisco. Another is spreading awareness after her son was poisoned to death by an unlabeled pill. Firefighters responded to a 2-alarm fire at the Tesla factory in Fremont this afternoon. The Fremont Fire Department said on Twitter at 1:50 p.m. that there were no reports of injuries. The fire mainly consisted of packing materials and cardboard pallets. Authorities have not yet published how the fire started. 13 human rights groups protested the decision to allow the Winter Olympics to be held in China. They cite the Chinese government's long track record of human rights abuses. NTD's Jason Blair takes us to the Golden Gate Bridge, where the rally began.
In San Francisco, 13 human rights groups are holding a protest over the Beijing Winter Olympics. They're holding a rally outside of the Golden Gate Bridge. Then they're going to march across the bridge, across the city, over to the Chinese consulate.
This is just like the 2008 Olympics. It's another farce.
You know, the movement is never going to end because the human rights abuses by the Chinese government do not end.
Near the Golden Gate Bridge, many speakers highlighted human rights crimes the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, has committed to specific groups of people.
6 million Tibetans are in the largest prison camp today. According to Freedom House, Tibet is the least free country on earth, tied with Syria.
After the rally at the bridge, the groups marched toward the Chinese consulate a total of 6 miles. Paulina, a biker who saw the protesters while riding across the bridge, said that she was aware of the human rights issues with the CCP and she supported the protesters. After their march through San Francisco, the groups arrived at the Chinese consulate where another rally was held.
We're here today to say to the world that the spirit of the Olympic Games is 100% incompatible with what the international community is allowing to happen in Beijing.
China is making use of the international sport event to divert people from focusing on the human rights abuses that they are committing. The brutal policies of Chinese governments are increasingly being recognized by the diplomatic boycotts from countries, including the US and others. The 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics run a serious risk of legitimizing these abuses.
Among the groups, there are representatives from Tibet, Hong Kong, Taiwan, the Uyghurs, Vietnam, and the Philippines. The Olympic Games officially begins on Friday. Jason Blair, NTD News, San Francisco.
Not only human rights groups, but also one California congresswoman is being critical of the Chinese regime. She proposed to make the CCP match emission-cutting standards established by the U.S. The House approved the amendment. The House of Representatives passed the America Competes Act on Friday. It's intended to increase the U.S.'s competitiveness against China. But some Republican lawmakers say it may have the opposite effect. California Congresswoman Michelle Steele offered multiple amendments to the bill.
China has avoided accountability for their unfair trade practices, gross human rights violations, and environmental abuse for too long.
Steele told the Epoch Times that the America Competes Act has flaws. In response, she introduced more amendments targeting the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP. One of her amendments was to require the CCP to match emission-cutting targets established by the United States. It passed the House of Representatives on Friday in a 265 to 166 vote.
China accounts for 28% of global greenhouse gas emissions, more than any other country in the world. This amendment takes necessary steps to hold China accountable for their pollution.
Another one of Steele's amendments is to end China's classification as a developing nation with the Paris Climate Agreement. Developing countries are given more relaxed standards.
It is time they are held to the same standards as any other developed country. They shouldn't get a free pass. We cannot allow China to walk all over us.
She cited China being the second largest economy in the world. Steele had another amendment that prohibits Chinese, Russian, North Korean, or Iranian state-owned enterprises from owning companies that operate a U.S. port. The America Competes Act will need to be reviewed by the Senate for further progress. David Lam, NTD News, California. A Southern California city passed an ordinance to punish catalytic converter theft. The move comes after a rising trend in theft of car parts across the nation.
The city of Lake Forest in Orange County unanimously passed a new ordinance on February 1st prohibiting the unlawful possession of exhaust emission control devices. Anyone caught with a catalytic converter without proof of ownership will face a misdemeanor with a $1,000 fine and up to 6 months in jail. Though cars can run without the converters, which reduce pollutants in exhaust, it is illegal to drive without one. Lake Forest City Attorney Matthew Richardson said, "The difficulty in prosecuting criminals for these thefts makes it a very convenient crime." He said, "It's easy money." Stealing catalytic converters has become a common trend across the nation. Thieves can usually remove one in less than 10 minutes from the underside of a car. Scrap metal yards are paying as much as $1,000 for the stolen converters. The price is for the valuable metals inside, such as platinum and palladium. Manufacturers often exclude serial numbers when making the car part, adding another layer of ease for the criminal activity. On the other hand, victims end up paying up to $3,000 to replace stolen converters. Additionally, some cities have lessened penalties for such crimes. According to the Orange County Sheriff's Department, approximately 160 converters reported stolen in 2021 came from Lake Forest. The Los Angeles Police Department reported over 5,000 stolen auto parts last year. Many of these parts were catalytic converters.
In San Francisco, a mother whose son is addicted to fentanyl is calling for help. She describes the heartbreaking scene of looking at her son suffering a slow death. She blames the city's policies against handling crime.
Jackie Berlin has a 32-year-old son, Corey, who is addicted to fentanyl. In an interview with Epic TV's California Insider Show, she said he is now homeless and has been left physically bent over and walks like an old man.
The people that are there that are homeless and addicted are being preyed upon, and they are deteriorating slowly. It's a slow death.
Her son was introduced to drugs as a teenager and became addicted after suffering from anxiety and depression. Berlin blames city officials' leniency on drugs that led to the lawlessness in the streets. She has been imploring policymakers to enforce stricter laws that criminalize drug use and sales in the city. She says Proposition 47, a law that reduced some lower-level crimes to misdemeanors from felonies and other state laws, has led to fewer arrests for possessing small amounts of drugs and shoplifting.
They're definitely not cracking down on these open-air drug scenes, and they're allowing it to flourish. And the solution that I hear is safe injection sites. My son says he said that then there'll just be more people like him on the street because they're just making it easier to be a drug addict. They're normalizing drug addiction.
In the past, she traveled throughout the Tenderloin neighborhood to find her son. She described the area as a zombie apocalypse with drug dealers on street corners, accompanied by homeless drug addicts. Her son wanted to get sober, but when he called a rehabilitation center, he was told there was no space for him, so he eventually turned back to drugs.
His greatest fear is detoxing from fentanyl because it's supposed to be incredibly horrible, and it's actually he could even die from it if he's not getting help and being monitored.
The city's data reveals the number of overdose fatalities in 2020 nearly tripled the number of COVID deaths. A protest organized by Mothers Against Drug Deaths is planned at United Nations Plaza in San Francisco on Saturday. In a tweet, Berlin called the community to join her.
Fentanyl addiction is truly a widespread phenomenon in the United States. In recent years, teenagers have become the target of online drug dealers selling counterfeit pills made of fentanyl. NTD's Cynthia Kai introduces us to a Southern California family who lost their child to fentanyl poisoning, but are now dedicated to helping save others.
May 14, 2020, changed the lives of Ed and Mary Ternan. Their 22-year-old son, Charlie Ternan, was found dead in his college dorm at Santa Clara University.
I couldn't believe it was happening, that he was gone, and they said, he died of pills. And I said, pills? What are you talking about, pills? I was just here, and we didn't find any evidence of any pills, and it's just the worst kind of news any parent could receive.
Charlie was not an addict. His parents said he took a pill he thought was Percocet to ease his back pain from a previous back surgery. But the pill Charlie took turned out to be a fake, a pill containing highly potent fentanyl, which they have coined as Fentapills.
And again, we discovered later that Charlie took one pill, and that's an important part of the message. We don't describe Charlie's death as an overdose, and what's happening these days is not really overdose. This is poisoning.
Following their son's death, Ed and Mary began to research and connect with other families that had similar experiences. Soon, Song for Charlie was created in an effort to raise awareness and tackle the issue of Fentapills.
What they're being sold are these very realistic-looking counterfeit pills. And so they take one, which is the recommended dose, and it kills them because it's completely fake and it's made of this really potent fentanyl, which is a synthetic opioid.
Their mission is to warn teenagers, who are the primary victims, about the dangers of counterfeit pills made of fentanyl. Ed and Mary are spreading the message on social media, in schools, and to other parents.
And the ultimate goal through all of that is to get the kids to take some ownership of this issue, because we think if the kids engage, that these deaths are preventable.
Their goal is to get kids talking about the issue among themselves.
Our saying is no random pills. And if kids start saying to each other, where did you get that? Don't put that in your mouth. Did that come from your doctor? Do you know where that pill came from? What is that? Let me look at that. Is that the real, if it starts to be taboo among the kids, uncool to share prescription pills, we think we can reduce a lot of death and sadness.
Their organization name, Song for Charlie, stems from a sense of hope. It was also inspired by a song one of Charlie's favorite musicians wrote in memory of Charlie.
He created this beautiful song for Charlie the day after he died.
And, he called it Song for Charlie. And, Charlie loved movies and music and the arts and, concerts and stuff like that. And we just thought, what a great name for our organization. It's somewhat hopeful.
Ed and Mary say they are hopeful that the counterfeit pills crisis can be solved.
And coming up, lawsuits abound in California. San Jose is facing 2 new suits, one against the mayor and one against its state university. That and more here on NTD News. Thursday morning, the city of San Jose and the mayor were sued for allegedly using a private email account to do city business. Using private communications allows officials to bypass public records laws.
The First Amendment Coalition, or FAC, and the San Jose Spotlight filed a lawsuit alleging that the city and mayor withheld information from the public.
First and foremost, we're asking the court to force the city to disclose records that it has not released, or to disclose unredacted records that it has given us but improperly redacted.
Snyder says the lawsuit is requesting a court order for city officials to stop using personal devices for public matters. He added that government email addresses should be at least copied on communications.
We believe the public has a right to see, and the public has a right to know. So my organization, which is a nonprofit news organization, requested a series of emails from City Hall, public emails.
Between December 2020 and May 2021, the San Jose Spotlight requested public records on a variety of city matters and conversations between Liccardo and lobbyists, constituents, and others. The mayor's office informed AP News that they reviewed San Jose Spotlight's PRA request in good faith, but may have missed 2 emails. The attorney representing FAC and San Jose Spotlight said he hopes for more transparency from city officials.
Don't try to hide things. Don't operate in secrecy. Obey the law.
At the conference, Olson said the organization uncovered records suggesting Mayor Liccardo used a private phone for public matters.
There are a lot of mayors and city council men and women that are using private phones to conduct public business, and that's dangerous. That leads to backroom deals, that leads to favoritism to their friends, to their cronies, to their corporate campaign contributors.
Olson cited a 2017 Supreme Court ruling that stated public business conducted on private electronic devices are subject to California's public records law. The lawsuit was filed in Santa Clara County Superior Court and is awaiting review.
A San Jose State University professor is suing her university for allegedly running a smear campaign against her. Through the lawsuit, she hopes to return to her studies and lecturing.
Anthropology professor Elizabeth Weiss filed a lawsuit against San Jose State University after allegedly smearing her as a racist. She further claims the university punished her for criticizing a federal antiquities law. Weiss filed on January 31st in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California against Stephen Perez. Perez is the interim president of the university. Weiss's attorney, Daniel Ortner, said the university retaliated against her for her views. They allege that the university labeled Weiss racist merely for teaching and for advancing controversial ideas in her field. Weiss is a tenured professor and specializes in osteology, the study of bones and their structure. Part of her research has involved the remains of indigenous people. At the same time, she has been critical of a federal law that requires universities and museums to surrender remains to tribal descendants. She says the law runs afoul of the U.S. Constitution's Establishment Clause by favoring religion over science. Despite her criticism of the law, her lawyer writes she has always complied with it. Nonetheless, she published a book critical of the law, angering both colleagues and a Twitter mob. As a result, Weiss alleges the university began a poorly disguised campaign of retaliation, restricting her access to skeletal remains. A chair of the anthropology department called her professionally incompetent and labeled her as a white supremacist. Her lawyer hopes that through the lawsuit, Weiss can once again access the remains and continue both her studies and teaching.
In a recent press release, California's Attorney General Rob Bonta reached an agreement with Perrigo to improve the safety of the company's infant and toddler formula products. The pharmaceutical company will have to work with independent auditors to ensure lead levels are appropriately low. The Attorney General said the settlement sets the lowest enforceable lead levels in the country for infant and toddler formula. In July of 2018, prosecutors claimed that Perrigo's products had lead exceeding the Prop 65 warning threshold. Perrigo told NTD that their products already contain extremely low lead levels, but voluntarily worked with the Attorney General for the past 3 years to see if it can be reduced further. Perrigo said, a Prop 65 warning on a product does not mean the product is unsafe. Lead is a naturally occurring substance that exists everywhere in the environment. All formula products made by all manufacturers contain lead. Perrigo has denied that their formula products contain levels of lead that violate Prop 65. Los Angeles is facing a bus driver shortage. The bus service will reduce service hours while it looks into ways to find more operators.
Bus operators in Los Angeles are leaving city public transit service Metro faster than they're being hired. As a result, the Los Angeles Transit Agency will temporarily reduce bus service starting on February 20th. The goal is to avoid more unexpected cancellations. The Metro Board of Directors voted last Thursday to reduce the service due to the bus operator shortage. Between December 13th and January 12th, several bus lines had 20% or more of their trips canceled due to the shortage, according to a staff presentation given to the board. Metro officials said the cancellations particularly impacted South Los Angeles. Beginning February 20th, bus service will be reduced by 800,000 revenue service hours, which is the time per year that a vehicle is available for service. Metro aims to begin service restoration in June 2022 at the earliest. Metro blamed the reduction in operators on a labor shortage, high turnover, and the CCP virus, also known as COVID-19. The high turnover began in July 2021. Since then, around 350 drivers have left the company, with just over 200 being hired. Metro said the reason for people leaving included retirement, personal reasons, misconduct, new job acceptance, and unsatisfactory performance. The bus operator shortage has increased bus service cancellations to about 10 to 15%. That's up from the pre-pandemic cancellation average of about 1 to 2%. Metro has considered temporary wage increases to hire more operators. Among other requirements, Metro will need about 500 more operators to restore service to normal.
The U.S. Customs and Border Protection announced on Thursday that it will deploy scanning technology at the SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. The technology will be used to inspect trucks and vehicles entering the arena. CBP says it is to ensure that the Super Bowl will be safe.
People will soon see large containers and vehicles getting scanned ahead of the Super Bowl at the SoFi Stadium. The U.S. Customs and Border Protection are conducting the security inspection.
We use it to identify contraband, weapons, explosives, any items, any products, any merchandise, or equipment that could cause harm to the American public.
The X-ray machines can penetrate a foot of thick material, including steel. The contents of the container, regardless of size, will be visible in the system at a glance. This method is nothing new.
The challenges that we're going to face at Super Bowl are the same challenges we face every day at our ports of entry nationwide.
Starting February 6th, all containers entering the SoFi Stadium will be scanned one by one. Officials estimate that 250 to 300 conveyances will be inspected per day.
To ensure that the players, all the attendees, and everyone involved in the event not only are safe, but that enjoy the game.
Super Bowl 56 on February 13th expects to attract 70,000 spectators to watch the Rams take on the Cincinnati Bengals.
Tesla is recalling more than 800,000 vehicles due to a faulty seatbelt reminder. Impacted vehicles include 2021 and 2022 models X, S, 3, and Y. The problem is that the seatbelt chime fails to sound in some Teslas when a driver exits the vehicle while it is ringing and then re-enters. Since that chime is controlled by software, Tesla plans to fix the issue by sending an over-the-air update. That means owners will not have to bring their vehicles to a service center for the fix. It marks the second time this week Tesla has issued a recall. The first was related to a problem with the company's self-driving software. That issue allowed vehicles in its pilot program to roll through stop signs without coming to a complete stop. Now for a sports update from NTD's Thomas Christian.
I'm Thomas Christian, taking you through the California Today Sports Roundup. Klay Thompson passed Kobe Bryant on the all-time list with 6 of his 7 three-pointers Thursday night, as the Golden State Warriors used a long-distance assault to thump the Sacramento Kings 126-114 in San Francisco. Thompson finished with the team-high 23 points, Stephen Curry had 20, and Jonathan Kuminga had 18 for Golden State, which won its league-best 8th in a row en route to becoming the NBA's second 40-game winner. The Warriors trailed only the Phoenix Suns in the Western Conference and in the league standings. Thompson shot 7 for 9 on three-point attempts, improving his career trade total to 1,829, passing Kobe Bryant, and moving within 1 of Chauncey Billups for 19th on the NBA's all-time list. Rookie Davion Mitchell had a season-best 26 points, and Harrison Barnes scored 25 for the Kings, who were playing for the second consecutive night. Sacramento beat the visiting Brooklyn Nets 112-101 on Wednesday to snap a 7-game losing streak. Warriors 126, Kings 114. Marcus Morris Sr. scored 29 points and Reggie Jackson added 25, including the go-ahead score with 4.1 seconds remaining, as the Los Angeles Clippers enjoyed their long-awaited return home with a victory over the visiting Los Angeles Lakers. Serge Ibaka added 20 and 8 rebounds as the Clippers won after going 4-4 on a road trip. The Lakers' Anthony Davis scored 30 points and secured 17 rebounds, but he missed a running jumper for the win at the buzzer. The Lakers lost Carmelo Anthony late in the first half due to a right hamstring ailment. Clippers 111, Lakers 110. Phil Mickelson said all of the world's top golfers had been contacted about joining a proposed Super Golf League, and that the threat of the Saudi-backed circuit had improved players' earnings potential. Speaking on the eve of the Asian Tour Saudi International near Jeddah, Mickelson said the prospect of a new rival had already prompted the US-based PGA Tour to distribute more money to its players. He cited a new player impact program that handed out $40 million to the players who generated the most media coverage, and the increase in prize money to $20 million at last year's Players' Championship in Florida. On Thursday, Mickelson provided more details of his beef with the PGA Tour, expressing unease that players do not own media rights to their own images in tournaments. A day after saying the threat of a new Saudi-based global golf circuit had already prompted the PGA Tour to distribute more money to its players, Mickelson gave more details of his issues with the US-based circuit. Players give their media rights to the PGA Tour upon accepting their membership. The PGA Tour told Reuters it had no comment on Mickelson's remarks, which comes as former world number 1 Greg Norman spearheads a quest to create a rival Super Golf League backed by the Saudi Investment Fund. I'm Thomas Christian, and thanks for tuning in.
And we have great news today. Starting Monday, our show will begin broadcasting on select West Coast television channels. You can check your local channel number at ntd.com/tv-providers.html. And that's all that we have in store for you tonight. We'd love to have you back on California Today every weekday at 8:30 p.m. Feel free to let us know if you have any news tips for our show. We're also on Twitter and Facebook. I'm David Lamb. We'll see you next time.